Welcome into the show on this Wednesday, October the 18th. Always appreciate the feedback. Getting a lot of it on this hot topic today. The Perryton School Board, as you may know by now, has called a special meeting for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning on Thursday for, quote, consideration and possible action on a voluntary employment separation agreement with release of claims between the district and the superintendent. Also for the assistant superintendent. We were talking about it last hour, and I was wondering, as some of you are, because I've heard from some of you, what does release of claims mean exactly? And my thoughts were, while we don't know all the facts, and they're not going to spill all the juicy details, for understandable reasons, the attorneys tell them not to do it, can put your district and your taxpayers, as a result, in a liable situation. We get it. But common sense tells us, I think, that if the school board is going to go through with this step, they're going to part ways with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. I think we know now that's going to happen. And if that's the case, then we can assume, I think, common sense would tell us, we can assume that the school board has taken a look at the evidence of the claims of sexual harassment by these men and have deemed that the accusations are true enough, to whatever degree, that included whatever, that there is reason for dismissal or the parting of the ways. You agree to resign, and we agree to, this, that, or the other. My point was, I think some people have an issue with that. And I'm not blaming the school boards. I know they do what the attorneys tell them, you better do it this way, or you could get sued and it could cost you a lot of money. I think that's what happens. So I'm not criticizing the school boards. But I can see where a lot of the folks have issues by saying, look, evidently they saw enough evidence to say, yeah, that's not good. It's against, it's a violation of conduct policy. We're going to have to make this move. Well, if that's the case, then if, and we don't know yet, we'll ask the questions tomorrow when we visit with School Board President Monty Kennard following their meeting. But if release of claims means what it would imply, I think, hey, you resign and we won't put it on the record. That way we don't hurt your chances as much, at least, down the road of getting another job. I think some people would say, well, hold on just a second. If the claims aren't true, well, then you don't part ways. You look into it. You said, no, I don't think so. I don't think the line was crossed. There is no pattern of behavior here. And so you keep them. If there is, and evidently that is the case because of the steps the school board is taking, then why do you agree to shh? But if you leave, we won't tell anybody. That was the question. And some of you sounding off. One listener says that's exactly what Spearman did with a coach that was having inappropriate relations with two female students. Unreal. Meaning you agree to part ways and shh, I suppose. Listener continues, I'm not certain, but I believe he just moved on to another job. Unreal what sweeping under the rug allows. You ought to check into it. We are. Another listener, police departments do this as well. Then they pass the scumbag on down the line. What about the district fighting for its employees? Sounds like here they have taken sides and separating ways with and hushing it all around. Could it possibly refer to, this is another one, could it possibly refer to contractual obligations and stipulations, meaning the reference to release of claims? Could be. The word claim there makes me wonder if that's exactly what's meant, but again, I don't know for sure. Good point. And we'll ask when we visit with Mr. Kennard again tomorrow and see if he can answer, if he has the release to talk about those things in detail or not. Does release of claims mean the harassment charges are dropped? We talked about this one earlier. I think the word charges is probably not quite right, because that we've heard of no legal charges, no legal issue, a charged with a crime. What we're hearing about is a pattern of inappropriate conversation, and I've heard that from many people now, behind the scenes, and people that are involved in the school district and people that are much, much closer to the situation. It is my understanding, I believe, what we're talking about here is a pattern of inappropriate comments in the presence of women. And some evidently said enough is enough and brought it to the attention of the school board, and evidently the school board, at least the majority, agrees because they're taking these steps. I think we're safe in assuming that. I'll also add this, by the way. There are some of you out there that are such fine people of character, and I don't mean this in a negative way at all. There are some of you out there that are such people of character and integrity. Maybe a good word, if you're a person of faith, would be godliness, a measure of godliness, that you would just simply never, regardless of the crowd, say anything that's sexually suggestive or that's crude and offensive or inappropriate. You just wouldn't do it because you've got control of your tongue, and I think that is amazing and commendable. And I get it. That the old bracelet. What would Jesus do? I get it. I've got to be honest. That's not me, and I'm not boasting about that. I'm not proud about it. Things that come out of our mouths that are crude, that are rude, that are inappropriate for whatever crowd or no crowd. In my opinion, it's just a habit. And I used to not do it, but I've allowed my mouth to get lazy, so to speak. And it's a character flaw that I'm not proud of. But it's my opinion, based on hearing what I've heard. I believe that what we're talking about here with these two men, I think you're talking about men that have said things that many of the rest of us would say and do say. Doesn't make it right. I'm not defending it. I'm saying I think they're good guys, and I think that they have said things that many of us say and have said and will say again. But in the confines of a number of women in the education setting, I think that's a big difference here. I'm not saying it makes it right in any setting. I get that. I'm not saying that. But I think it's when and where, and it got them. And maybe it challenges many of us to say, you know what, I need to be more careful about that. Because of course in today's world, boy, I mean, it can bite you in the butt. See, I've done it again. Some of the others that are sounding off. On the subject of the superintendent and all the release and sweeping it under the rug, that's the problem with these districts. A lot of teachers, a lot of their personnel do something, and it's swept under the rug, and when they go to the next district, it happens again. Where is that fair? I think it should be something the public knows, and especially their next employer. Another listener into the text hotline, 202-2600. All employers should ask one question. Is this person eligible for rehire? Well, I get it. I'm not sure that's going to get the information that a prospective employer is looking for, because I believe what happens is that because of the prospects of liability, those in education, especially when you got all these lawyers with the TEA and all that, And it happens with other companies as well. You get a call for a reference. Hey, how about that Chris Samples? I wouldn't hire that piece of dog dookie. See, I've done it again. I wouldn't hire that guy if my life depended on it. No, he's a dirty, rotten scoundrel. And he said dog dookie on the radio, and it made me vomit up my Egg McMuffin. And then they get sued for defamation or slander or something. So many people don't even go there. And I think that's what's happening. Right or wrong, I think that's a lot of what's happening. And this one, into the text hotline. Perryton politics is what it is. It's not okay to hide this type of accusation. There was enough evidence to back this accusation, and this is the coward's way out for Hall and his buddy. As taxpayers, we deserve to know more facts, so if Hall and his buddy stay in this town, we can protect ourselves. Well, I get it. I think that's a little, in my opinion, that's a little harsh. I think these guys are good guys. I've said that. I think these guys are good guys. They're not sexual predators. I've heard no accusations of, this being a Weinstein, a Harvey Weinstein thing. I think it's a systemic pattern of inappropriate communication, talk. That's what I've come to believe is true. And if I've learned something otherwise, I'll correct it. We'll report it. But I think that's what's happening here. So, and again, I hesitate. While I completely understand the victims, quote unquote victims' right to come forward and say enough's enough, I get it, and I understand it completely. And I think people have to be respected. They say no, I'm not going to continue to sweep this under the rug and let this happen. It offends me, and I think it's wrong. And here it is in school policy, and I'm going to bring it. And I think that's what happened by this particular Perryton ISD grade school level principal. I think that's what happened, because I've heard from others that are in that circle, and they say, yeah, I've known it for years. That's what people are saying. But I think it's a matter of some inappropriate talk in the wrong circles, not some kind of a predatorial thing. At the end of the day, that's why a listener last week was right on the money when they sent me a text message and said, sad situation, nobody wins. Nobody wins. These men have families. They have children. There are spouses. And bam, it comes crashing down. It comes crashing down. And you got to pick up the pieces and move on. And that's what PISD is trying to do, and that's what these men and their families will be trying to do. And having been in a totally different, but having been in the fire, when your world falls apart, getting fired, I've been there. And you don't know what's happening, and you don't know how it's going to turn out, and what am I going to do, and what do I do with my family, and how am I going to provide? I can tell you, it makes you sick at your stomach, even if you know you're right or you know you're wrong. And what you did, said, or et cetera, there are no winners. And for that reason, I'll close by saying our thoughts are with them all.